As mentioned there, my name's McGhie. I'm the Digital Engagement Manager on behalf of Barclays. We're covering off today. We've got a short period of time. I'm going to try and go through some of, I've tried to concentrate on the key ones that affected our customers last year, but also we do a lot of work with the West Midlands and East Midlands cybercrime units. And these two forms of attack were the hot topics of 2017 last year. So I've tried to focus it on those two. But we do have a longer in-depth analysis on when we do these types of cyber attacks. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things out there at the moment which are trying to trick us into payments and into doing something that we don't really want to be doing on behalf of the business. So I'm going to give you an overview of those two. So the two that I'm going to concentrate are on social engineering, and I'm going to touch a bit upon ransomware, as they seem to be the hot topics of 2017. At the end, there are loads of links. We are based at the back. If you can't take the links down for additional support and help that can guide your business through this, so hopefully we can cover that off. So just to set the scene, whenever I present, I'm always conscious that this sort of slide normally frightens people to death, and I'm not really a stats man, but I think the purpose of it is there to make us all think about how are we operating as a business, how are you making sure that you and your staff are aware of the threats that are out there, and making sure that they've got the steps in place to make sure they don't fall victim of a type of fraud, of type of attack that may happen on your business. So a few of the key ones there. Financial fraud across the UK totaled 770 million, that was in 2016. We're still waiting for the 2017 data, but there's no doubt it will definitely have increased. On average, it can take 231 days before you even know you've been hacked. We've got examples of that with invoice fraud. So you might be paying a supplier or what you thought was a genuine supplier because you fall victim of a trick email or a trick impersonation invoice. And what might happen is when your actual supplier asks for the payment and says that they've not been paid, you then scour through your payments and work out that you've paid a different sort code, a different account number. And that's why sometimes it can take you to two-thirds of a year before you even know that you've been breached on some of these types of attack. I think other than that, it's 46% of UK businesses identified cybersecurity breaches or an attack within the last 12 months, and that's only the ones that have actually reported it. So the ones that are not holding their hands up and admitting that they've actually been breached when surveyed. So it's a huge problem. Again, when I've done the work alongside the cybercrime units, it's a tier 1 threat for the government, which is up there with terrorism. And at this moment in time, they're just under-resourced within this. So that's why we're trying to come at it, present to as many people as possible on the preventative techniques that are out there. Just to let you know, so we'll go on to the first one, which is social engineering. So this is probably the most prolific way that attackers will use to try and breach you. And normally at this stage, I'll ask if everyone puts up their hand who's received a scam or a phishing email on your personal account. So we're all Nigerian lottery winners, yeah? Good. We're seeing more and more of them, and I don't know about you, but I've had at least 20 in my Microsoft Outlook inbox this week because it's coming to the end of tax year, so I'm asking me for HMRC refunds and just click on this link. The good news is we're laughing at them now when everyone put their hands up, and years ago we were clicking on them, and we're not anymore. We are laughing. So there's only, I think the average is one in every 2 million people clicks on that sort of email now, which is good news, which is where we need to be. But the reason why they do it is because they're still getting that one click, and for them, for a morning's piece of work, if that one click results in thousands of pounds, it's worth doing, and that's the risk that they take as a fraudster and attacker. So what they're trying to do is, if we concentrate on the social engineering aspect, it's the manipulation of situations and people that result in those targeted individuals divulging confidential information. So this is fairly generic one, probably similar to the ones that you've received, saying that you've won the Nigerian lottery, HMRC payments. We're familiar with these now. So the key things to look out for, normally I go and point at the screen and I think I'm quite tall, but I don't think I'm tall enough for this one. But right at the top, the subject title, make sure you know where it's come from. So it sounds an obvious thing of where it's come from, the sender. But a lot of the time, we're not hovering over it. We're not making sure it is genuine. Sometimes we're dealing with so many businesses and so many customers, we might not, spend enough time to read those emails. We're scanning those emails. We're all in a conference at the moment. The first thing that we do once we leave through the door is try to get rid of as many emails as possible. That's something that I definitely do. And that's what they rely on. They rely on us making a mistake and an error in that point. Next thing to look out for is the subject title. So where it says adjustments to your account settings. On that point, that one's quite demanding. It's put 3 exclamation marks in there. Anything that's demanding you to do something urgently, I would always class as suspicious. It's very rare reputable organisations that you communicate with are going to be demanding you to do something immediately. It's just not the done thing. Next thing to look out for is the logo. So hopefully everyone's noticed that it says eBuy rather than eBay. Hands up, when I started doing this 3 years ago, I genuinely didn't even notice that, and I knew the title of the course I was on, so I think that probably says more about me. But the logo, they're getting used to the branding, and when I mentioned at the start the invoice fraud, because they can copy headed paper and make it look as genuine as possible, those logos might exactly look the same. So really give it a good scan, make sure it is genuine, it's from someone that you believe. Then next thing to look out for in the generic ones is the body of the text. So within that body of the text, 95% of these types of attacks from the data that we've got from last year are from non-English speaking countries. So it's very likely that they use a translation system. And I don't know if you've ever used one the opposite way, but they don't always work the best. So always scan and have a look at the grammar within that and the spelling, and that is always an indicator as well. But the key thing of what they're trying to do, they're trying to get us to click on this as a hyperlink. So the whole body of that email is to try and get us to click on that, or open an attachment on the right-hand side there. So it's very likely that if we do click on those attachments, or if we do click on that link and it opens something up, that's the bit that will contain the malware. And to me and you, malware just stands for malicious software. So it's whatever the fraudster or the hacker has written that piece of malware to do. I often get asked sometimes as well when we click on something and if we've got security software in place, why is it not detecting that piece of malware? Malware exists because the fraudsters, they're always going to be one step ahead. So they're always writing new pieces of software that our security softwares are not going to pick up. So does anyone, when they open their laptop every now and again, get in the bottom right hand of the corner, if they're on Microsoft or anything, it's asking you to automatically update certain things, called a patch update. You get it on your iPhones as well, where it makes you reboot and install the latest piece of software. What those are doing, those patch updates, a lot of the time is 90% of it is security. And it's saying somewhere within the world, we've been breached by a new piece of malware. If you don't upgrade to the latest piece of software, you're exposing yourself to that breach, and therefore you need to install this patch update. So I would always encourage you to do that as quickly as possible once you get that as a notification. But they're the ones that we don't really fall for anymore. They're fairly basic, they're fairly generic, and luckily there's only 1 in every 2 million that's clicking on them. Bringing on the social engineering aspect. So sometimes when we post and we use social media, we need to be encouraged to do it. We know that business happens that way now, and we need to be out there and making it more accessible for our customers. Possibilities for the fraudster, though, that they try to take advantage of these situations, and they try to take advantage of any advancement in customer service or anything that you do to try and interact with your customers. And one thing that we've got here, this genuinely happened to my colleague who's now left the bank, who works within our Yorkshire region. So we've hid the actual name of the company, but you could probably work it out. So he's put, hey, Budget Airline UK, your gate at Manchester Airport should have opened 15 minutes ago. What's happening? Hashtag not good enough. So people like to go to Twitter to complain and to businesses and interact that way. And this was his genuine tweet, and he went out there and complained to them. Now, what happened on the back of that? He received what we call a spear phishing email. So the only difference between a phishing email is that the terminology is because they're casting their net far and wide and they're hoping for a hook. Spear phishing is they're targeting you as an individual. which is quite scary because they're probably surveying you as individuals within companies as well. So within this one, he looked at the email of where it comes from. The email link was meant to look as genuine as possible. The only difference was it had more information. It was naming him as a customer. So it was more believable whilst he's starting to read this. So it's a lot more believable than the first one. And in this, it's saying, we're sorry to hear that you were delayed at the airport when checking in on the 19th of October. And it's even got the flight number and where that person was flying to. As an apology, we would like to offer you a discount of 50% off your next flight, as well as a complimentary first class upgrade. All you need to do is click on the link below and we'll send out the voucher codes to you. So if he'd have clicked on that link, it's that link that would have contained the piece of malware, which would have been written to do whatever that piece of malware was written to perform. He said that this email looked so genuine, it was only this bit that made it stand out to him as being fraudulent. He hovered over the email link, and they can make it look that believable now, that he genuinely thought it's come from a direct source. He thought, they've got my flight number, they know where I'm going, nothing looks suspicious, it's naming me. He said if they'd have made that offer as an apology more reasonable and realistic, he'd have probably fallen for it. And that's why we say you need to read all aspects of it before we click on anything with inside the email, and we'd encourage you and your employees to do that as well. Where they got that information, so the date and the flight number and everything. So if you look at the bottom of the tweet, it's got the time, it's got the date. We know that he's flying from Manchester Airport. We know that when the gate should have opened. All that attacker has done is use social media links, gone online, looked at the airport's website, and there'll be 3 or 4 flights within that region, and they've probably got lucky in knowing that it's the one to New York. And what they might have used in association with that, they might have looked at his Facebook profile and realised if he's posted anything going to New York, anything like that, put the 2 and 2 together to make a more believable email. So the difference between that one, which is just not even stating you as an individual, you're not likely to fall on that, compared to using the information that you would, if I was to open that, I think it's named to me, it's genuine, it's got my details in there, it's more likely for us to click on it, and that's how advanced techniques they're using. Which leads us on to CEO impersonation fraud. So this is when they're impersonating someone within your business and emailing you or within that or another member of your team. And the whole idea is for that person to be tricked into trying to make a payment on the instructions of the person who's instructing that payment, who's they're imitated. So when I did this about 2 years ago, one of my first events over in here, within the Lincoln area, I got everyone to put their hands up, and whoever's seen a CEO impersonation type fraud or that type of fraud, and there's only 1 or 2. So can I just get any of the businesses here that have had these types of emails on their business? Right, so there's a fair few more. So within this last year was definitely, and probably still is, top of the list of types of attack that seem to be used. The reason being is, even though we might be sat here thinking, oh, I won't fall for this, and nodding our heads, it must work because there's 1 in 4 people are clicking on these sorts of emails. And it might not be you if you're the business owners, but if you've got anyone connected within your network and your staff members, are you educating them? Are you confident that they're aware not to click on something that they shouldn't? Have you got any policy in place? If the answer is no to any of that, then I think it's something that we need to go away and maybe start talking to the members of the staff and providing them with some support and some guidance. Because this, 1 in 4 of us, if we're still clicking on it. So the fraudsters, what they're doing, they might use the social engineering aspect. So we've had elements from the bank of when they've literally been monitoring a whole business. They're gathering information via Google, via Companies House. They're looking at the directors and the decision makers within that business. They're looking at their Facebook profiles, their Twitter profiles, to see when that person is going away and things like that. So if the director, for example, is going away, they've posted it on Facebook or they've put something on their website before I go on holiday, they're using that as an advantage. They're creating a fraudulent email, making it sound so genuine and just sort of saying, as you know, I'm away on holiday. I forgot to make this payment. Can you make this payment on my behalf? your staff member doesn't hover over everything that we've just been through on the first slide, has a look at that information and just thinks, yeah, I'm going to go in and pay it, and rather than picking up the phone to you because they don't want to trouble you whilst you're going away on holiday or anything like that, that's the type of attack that unfortunately we're still falling victim of, and it's still the most prevalent one. So that one is it's something we can easily do. At the end of this, if you all look on your phones and type into Google spoofmyemail.com or anything like that, or just type in spoof my email to Google, you'll see pages and pages of websites that can offer to do this. And you don't even have to, they don't even charge that much. They can make it look as that genuine as possible. So that's what we're up against, and that's why you see more and more of these types of attack. The only other quick topic I'll cover off is ransomware. So as we've mentioned there, if we'd have clicked on any link within the body of the text, it might have actually performed something called ransomware, which, again, 2 years ago was about 15th and 16th on the list for the cybercrime units. It rose to 3rd last year and probably got some headlines because of the WannaCry attack. If you do ever receive a ransomware attack, what it does, it takes over and it encrypts your data, and it gives the fraudster access to that data. So they've encrypted it so that you no longer have access. You'll get a lovely little pop-up there, which would scare the living daylights out of me. And what it will do, it will say you need to pay us this ransom, hence the terminology, and the kind criminals that they are organised crime units that we're up against. It'll even have a customer service helpline for you to ring and make your payment in Bitcoin. The thing is, when we do these talks, I think a lot of people assume that they're always going to attack the large businesses. I'd say one-man bands anywhere upwards, you're the primary target because they want quick wins. They want less barriers, less deterrent, and that's what they want to do. So within ransomware, if you don't have a good data backup, so if you're not backing up daily, or if you're not backing up, at least weekly, but you should be backing up daily ideally. If you don't have anything like that in place, then you're probably going to need to unplug everything and seek some third-party help. And that's why they always make the ransom fairly reasonable. I think the WannaCry attack was about £280. It doesn't sound a lot because they want you to pay. Otherwise, it's a bad business model. So that's why they do it that, because they think if you're going to take external help and it costs you £1,000, you might as well pay us. So that's how it works. I've only covered a few of them there. All I would say, it's coming to the end, that's just a couple of the topics. We cover a whole heap of topics, including DDoS attacks and invoice fraud and check imaging and things like that. So Barclays offers free cyber webinars. We're at the stand over there if you would like to come and speak to us at the end where we can talk you through this. You don't have to be a customer of ours. It's completely free. And then other support that I'll quickly cover off. We've got the Cyber Information Sharing Partnership. If you want to make a note of that website and have a look on there, the whole idea is it's a sharing and caring approach. And at the bottom, Cyber Essentials, it's a nationally recognised certification. I think it's worthwhile you going through this with a professional body. It'll cost you around £300, and it makes you as difficult as possible. It's showing the government and everyone else that you've taken the most essential steps to make it difficult for someone to breach your business. And I think with that in line with the GDPR regulation that's coming in, I think that'll serve you well to say that you've taken as many steps as possible to make it hard for you to be breached. And that's it from me. There's some further links that we can email the presentation out at the end.